Earliest record of Jews in Liverpool believed to be in 1750s, and they were considered the first Jewish community north of England. They were a small group and established their congregation in Stanley Street, Cumberland Street, close to present-day Met Quarter in the heart of Liverpool city centre. The latter community of Jews came around 1780, mostly from Germany. 9 years later, in 1789, they bought a townhouse, 133 Upper Frederick Street, in present-day's Chinatown. This house held 50 to 70 worshippers, and the garden was used as a community's burial ground. As the community grew, they built a synagogue at the top of Seal Street, near Chinese Archway on Bury Street in 1808. This became the first synagogue in Liverpool and was designed by architect Thomas Harrison of Chester. Accommodating 290 worshippers, it did not look like a synagogue, but more like a Greek building. It didn't even have a Star of David, as the Jews didn't want to draw too much attention to themselves. This premise would be the Jewish place of worship for the next 70 years almost. By 1870s, the Orthodox Jewish community had expanded and the congregation had split into two. Liverpool Old Hebrew congregation, with the synagogue ultimately on Prince's Road, and the Liverpool New Hebrew congregation, with the synagogue later on Greenbank Drive. The founding fathers felt they needed a more impressive building to reflect their growing wealth and status. Around 1868-1869, a plot of land was leased from Earl of Sutton in the affluent area of Prince's Road, Toxteth, then considered the fringe of city centre. A competition was held. 7 architectural firms applied, 6 Jewish and 1 non-Jewish. And it was the non-Jewish firm of W&G Wardsley which won it. They were Liverpool-based Scottish Presbyterian brothers William James Owsley and George Ashton Owsley from near Inverness, who were only in their 30s at the time. The brothers had gained a reputation for designing many churches in Liverpool, including the Welsh Presbyterian Church on Prince's Road, just opposite the synagogue, which was the tallest building in Liverpool when it opened in 1868, 6 years prior to Prince's Road Synagogue. But the Audley brothers never built a synagogue before, so they travelled across Southern Europe, Middle East, and North African coast for inspiration, and this Christian Islamic influence shows in their final design. The foundation stone for the new synagogue was laid in December 1872. Some 2 years later, on 3rd of September 1874, the synagogue was completed and consecrated as fit for prayer at a ceremony led by Chief Rabbi Dr. Nathan Marcus Adler, who came from London with a number of his colleagues. All the civic dignitaries of Liverpool were in attendance. The new synagogue seated 824 worshippers. It was handed over to the congregation by the building committee entirely free of debt. Prince's Road Synagogue cost just under £13,000 in those days, which is over 100 million in today's terms. It was funded entirely by members of the congregation and Patreon, including Samuel Montague, banker and politician, family member of H. Samuel Jewellery firm, David Lewis, shopkeeper and marketing expert who also founded Liverpool's famous department store Lewis's, Louis Cohen, senior partner in Lewis's and Lord Mayor of Liverpool from 1899 to 1900. His son Harold Cohen gave £100,000 to build University of Liverpool's library, the Harold Cohen Library, and George Berrand, merchant and shipowner. The original purpose-built synagogue in Seal Street was sold and later demolished. A plaque is there today between Colquitt Street and Bury Street to show the site. The colours and architecture of Prince's Road Synagogue are majestic. The acoustic resonates off the walls with great strength and vibrancy. It's the first synagogue in the country to have the sermon in English. It also broke away from tradition and has a mixed choir, the only one to do so in an Orthodox synagogue in Britain and one of the few in the whole world. 5 years after designing Princess Road, George Owsley designed new West End Synagogue in St. Petersburg Place, Bayswater, London, next to Hyde Park, which is a duplicate of Princess Road. The Princess Road Synagogue itself survived both world wars and with minor damage, but suffered a terrible arson attack in 1979 which caused a lot of damage. But thankfully it opened the following year and was upgraded to Grade 1 building in 2008 when Liverpool was chosen as European Capital of Culture. It was the first time in over 30 years Liverpool had a building listed as Grade 1. It's one of the 3 synagogues in England to have the Grade 1 listing, and the first Grade 1 listed synagogue outside of London. Today, the Princess Road Synagogue holds Shabbat and festival services according to Ashkenazi rites and is a regular venue for concerts and events. The synagogue carries out other activities which you see in many religious places, such as educating children and helping the elderly. They also maintain their 2 private cemeteries in Broadgreen, near Broadgreen Hospital, and Dean Road, Kensington area, which today is the oldest Jewish cemetery in Liverpool. However, a dwindling Jewish Liverpool population, an aging congregation, Toxteth's past violent reputation, combined with opening of other synagogues in the Allerton and Chilwell areas of the city, where majority of Liverpool's Jews live, has affected the Princess Road Synagogue and it has an uncertain future. Toxteth is a multicultural and multi-faith area, which has the historic Greek Orthodox Church of St. Nicholas just opposite the synagogue, and the Islamic Al-Rahman Mosque just around the corner from the synagogue, which is the first purpose-built mosque within Liverpool. They're all open to general public for tours. The population of Liverpool Jews may have declined from 11,100 years ago to just around 2,500 now, but the Scouse Jews are just as successful, influential, and hardworking as the elders. Be it education, politics, entertainment, or sports, the Scouse Jews are very active community members and are well supported by local Jewish organizations such as the Merseyside Jewish Representative Council, Liverpool Jewish Housing Association, Stapley Residential and Nursing Home, Shabbat Lubavitch Liverpool, and the 3 Orthodox synagogues of Princess Road, Allerton and Chilwell, and 1 Reformed congregation of Liverpool Reformed Synagogue. Princess Road Synagogue is one of the finest cathedral synagogues in Europe and is a beautiful gift back to the city from its Jewish inhabitants in return for the warm welcome it had given them.